Brock Purdy is a really intriguing conversation to have when talking about quarterbacks in general because there's a fine line of understanding the situation that you're in and also how you've adapted to developing into the NFL. So Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, guy was drafted 7th round for a reason. We all can agree. The dude was not 5-star material, and he wasn't a player that you thought of when it came to conversations about QB1 in the 2022 draft. Now, spoiler alert, the 2022 draft sucked when it came to QBs. They were. I mean, anyone from Kenny Pickett to Desmond Ridder to Sam Howell to Malik Willis, there were always going to be flaws and conversations and negatives around their name. And I understand if you did not buy in to any of them because it was one of those times where it's like, hey, let's draft this guy with the 20th overall pick. You're like, really? That dude? All right. Best of luck to you, I guess. And Brock Purdy was the very last pick. Now, Purdy, of course, only got the starting job just because of injury. Trey Lance gets hurt in week 2. Okay, that's over. Now we're going to turn to Jimmy Garoppolo. We couldn't let him go, so let's hold on for a second and see what he can do. Well, he understands Kyle Shanahan's offense, and he's able to run it efficiently. Doesn't mean at an elite standard, but he can at least handle the job. So it was kind of smart not to let him go because if you knew at that point, if you had to start Brock Purdy for, say, a 17-game stretch, or what would have been, 17 games if you include the playoffs, maybe you wouldn't be in the situation of where you were. But Purdy comes in after Jimmy G gets hurt, and he thrives, and he prospers. And there is that fine line of understanding, is he a good player or just in a good system? I politely believe at this point, we're somewhat crossing that threshold that he is a part of the solution. Now, last year he wasn't. Last year we all can agree. Great receiving core. I wouldn't say an elite offensive line. I'd say about an average offensive line. But he did have great weaponry. He had a potent run game headlined by a versatile playmaker in Christian McCaffrey and a stout defense that was going to bail you out of trouble every single snap. That's what you had in San Francisco. So you could argue that because of that being the baseline, you were in a very clear spot in terms of success. So I look at how you build off of that. And Purdy goes ahead and he hurts his UCL. And then there comes the conversation, is he going to be able to start in week 1? Now we talk about Brock Purdy, and Purdy has been at least an efficient quarterback who at this point you would definitely draft well before Mr. Irrelevant. He is now very relevant to the success story that is in San Francisco, and he has kind of been part of that factor that is a demeaning trait to a 4-0 start. He's not Stetson Bennett. He's nowhere near Stetson Bennett, but if I could compare Stetson Bennett to Brock Purdy for a second, here's where I would say. So Stetson Bennett benefited from having a great run game, a great coaching staff, and an elite defense his first year at Georgia. He did the bare minimum. Don't turn the ball over. Trust your run game. Get in the red zone and put up points. That's all we're asking you to do, Stets. You're a walk-on for a reason. We have self-doubt in you because of we like JT Daniels. We like Brock Vandagriff. We like Carson Beck. But you're a veteran. You've been around the block for a minute. Go ahead and just don't mess it up. So they win the national championship. Then he comes back for his second year. And everybody in Athens took a huge sigh of disdain and trepidation because of, holy crap, this dude could have gone out on top. Like, can you imagine being a walk-on who had to leave the program to come back to the program, a program that you grew up rooting and cheering for, and then you break the 40-year drought of bringing home a national title? And then you're like, oh, legacy secure. I'm going to be safe. I know that I will always be remembered as the dude in Athens. And that franchise and that program said, get the hell out of here. We need to turn to a younger option for our team. MP said no. Well, the next year, Bennett was a part of the solution and part of the offensive production that did lead to a second national title. So he developed and he got better and he built a consistency and a rapport with the receivers and the tight end play with Brock Bowers. And eventually, all of those who had that self-doubt that Bennett couldn't get the job done had to go ahead and eat crow. You're seeing similar results with Brock Purdy. Through 4 games this year, He has a completion percentage of 72.2. He also has a passer rating of 115.1. But the biggest thing is you've also seen his numbers go up in terms of yard per pass attempt. Last year, he was hovering right around 7.1. Now he's at 9.1. He hasn't thrown an interception yet. He has 2 rushing touchdowns on the year. And in the last game against the Arizona Cardinals, now I know it's Arizona. We're not going to lean too much into this. But he did complete 95% of his throws, and he did find his way into the end zone twice. So it's very similar to what you had with Stetson Bennett when he was at Athens. Once he got comfortable understanding he was the starting quarterback and that he was in no line of losing his job, and the franchise had handed over the keys and said, bring us to victory, that confidence got to an all-time elite level, and he has gone super saiyan. He has absolutely been a part of the solution. And I think that's where we kind of look right now. If anybody were to say that Brock Purdy is an elite quarterback, you'd be wrong. You would absolutely be wrong. I think that right now there are probably 5 quarterbacks that are elite in the NFL, and Brock Purdy is not one of them. But I think that we can also justifiably say he is a part of the success story that is out in San Francisco. He's no longer just a product of the system. Now, I'm not saying that if you put him in a different system that he won't work, because part of the reason he has gotten well results and part of the reason he has been so productive is he is playing for Kyle Shanahan, and the Shanahan system fits him to a T. And also, this is a quarterback that Shanahan wants, because if he understands, do these little things methodically, and if we can build off that, we got to the success story. We're in a pretty good spot. But at the same time, he is a part of the solution. You can have great weaponry, you can have a good offensive line, you can have superstar defensive players, and they do. They have all of that out in San Francisco. But they also have a quarterback that understands what is in store and what your head coach wants. And when you have that same brainwave and that same wavelength of understanding coach quarterback correlation, it leads you to having the results on the field. And that's why San Francisco has been so good this year. They've won every single game by at least 7 points. And in fact, you found ways to see them build off of their lead late in the fourth quarter. Like, again, look at the Arizona game last week. Arizona, they're pesky. They absolutely do not look like the worst team in the NFL, even if you don't believe that they will end up picking outside the top 5. But they've been efficient of keeping things interesting. And there you see Brock Purdy, once again, finding ways to deliver on third down, keep the drive alive, put you in the red zone, and put up points. That's what you need in your quarterback. So I'm not saying that Brock Purdy is going to be one of those superstar names that eventually finds his way to Canton. It's way too early for that. And anybody out there that is using the TB12 comparison, go ahead and pass over the Kool-Aid that you're drinking. I want a part of that to feel like I'm alive and well. I'm all in on that. But what I will say here, when it comes to Purdy, is that if he can be one of the 7 best quarterbacks in the NFC, you guaranteed are going to the playoffs, number one. You guaranteed have a shot with this defense, with the weaponry, and with the rapport of the coach to be able to be the team to beat in the NFC. And if you force the playoffs to go through you and that confidence continues to rise, that chemistry continues to produce, and you continue to see the trust factor in Shanahan with Purdy, this can be a very special season out in the Bay. They got a test this weekend against Dallas. I'm not disagreeing with any of that. But Purdy at this point. Thank you so much for watching that video. Don't hit the X button yet. Make sure you hit subscribe to keep up with all of our daily content found on Just Saying It and anything else that we post on this channel. Bye.